Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. All right. I had to pull out my Butch Jones shirt. I'm doing laundry, and all my other shirts are in the wash. So, ode to Butch Jones. I know y'all miss him so. Anyway, let's talk about what's going on. First of all, this thing's coming to a head with the NCAA and Jeremy Pruitt and all that. It's getting ready to happen. Also, Heupel responded to the slight. As you know, every coach that's worried and upset about Josh Heupel's offense has had to chime in, and recently it was Kirby Smart. And, of course, Nick Saban and Coach Scarduzzi up in Pittsburgh, and we've even got Dabo copping him, etc. But he did respond to some of the criticism he's been taking. We're going to talk about that as well. But first, we got to get in the NCAA crap. And that's this story. It's by Ross Dellinger in Sports Illustrated, and the hearing has been scheduled for the NCAA infractions case. So again, this thing is absolutely coming to a head. And what it's doing, it's going to what's called a contested hearing. And it says former head coach Jeremy Pruitt and former defensive coordinator Derek Ansley are scheduled to appear before members of the Committee on Infractions later this month in what's become a somewhat contentious fight between each of the three parties and the association. The three parties received a letter announcing the three-day hearing scheduled for April 19th through the 21st in Cincinnati. And the reason there's so much contention and why they're all fighting is Jeremy Pruitt doesn't want to just go, oh, well, yeah, I did it, and I'll take the 3-year show cause or whatever like the other assistant coaches did. Because if he does that, then that gives reason and credibility to the Vols firing him and not having to pay him the remainder of his contract. So, of course, he's going to fight that to the death. And, you know, financially, I understand that. And then, of course, Tennessee's not ready to agree to anything because they want to make sure they don't get the loss of control, penalties, and all that. You know, they've already penalized themselves, and we're going to show that in here. But there's reasons why they're fighting this, and a lot of it has to do with monetary reasons. And, of course, the case stems from the serious recruiting misconduct by Pruitt staff and members under former athletic director Fulmer. The school received notice of allegations in July spelling out the $60,000 worth of impermissible benefits, recruiting inducements, etc. over a 3-year period. Pruitt and his wife and several football staff members, all of whom were fired in January. Of course, his wife wasn't fired, but she was involved on some level. It says, despite months of negotiation, a resolution between the school and the NCAA, as well as the coaches, has not been reached, and I've talked to you about why. It says the reasons remain unclear. It's actually fairly clear. Potential penalties believed to range from multi-year show cause for those involved to further probationary sanctions for the school. Tennessee declined comment. Spokesperson also declined comment, etc. We're not talking. And we already know that 4 assistant coaches have already received 3-year show causes. And it says, given the nature of the case, many expected the school to have reached a resolution with the NCAA, but I don't think they can until they get things a little bit further down the line, and they don't want to agree to something that would hurt them. Because their big concern is they were going to get the lack of institutional control, which I think they've already moved past that, and they're not going to do that because the institution, according to the NCAA, showed strong cooperation with NCAA investigators, conducted a thorough internal investigation of its own, and took immediate steps in both dismissing the culprits and sanctioning itself. The university docked itself 12 football scholarships last season, as well as imposed several more recruiting penalties, yet the two parties have not reached a resolution. So the Vols are basically saying, look, we've already docked ourselves 12 scholarships, a bunch of other recruiting restrictions, and we fired all the people involved in it. And we fully cooperated, which is what you said we should do. So if the NCAA continues to hammer them after that, what is the point of cooperating? If the NCAA hammers the Vols, which I don't think they will, nobody's going to ever cooperate with the NCAA again. They've got to show some contrition on this thing to say, we realize you've done this. Plus, in their bylaws, they say they're not going to penalize kids from past behavior that had nothing to do with them. So, you know, bowl game restrictions, things like that should not happen. Otherwise, you're penalizing the kids of the future for kids from the past or coaches from the past. So it doesn't really make sense they haven't worked out something with the Vols, but it may have something to do with the case between Pruitt trying to get his money and the Vols. And it says there's 3 parts to a resolution: traditional hearing, summary disposition, and negotiated resolution. Most cases, 70% are settled without a hearing. Well, we're not part of the 70%. says, at a hearing, the NCAA enforcement staff and each party, often with legal rep, present their side before a portion of the committee on infractions, the ruling group, normally made up of school administrators. A ruling is typically within 6 to 8 weeks, though that time period can stretch. And here it says Pruitt is likely in line for stiff penalties. We all know that. 18 allegations of blatant recruiting misconduct, Pruitt's staff transpiring, over that period of time. It says Pruitt and staff hosted at least 6 prospects, their families on non-weekend visits, providing lodging, meals, etc., furniture that totaled $12,000. Pruitt himself is charged with having made cash payments of $3,000 and $6,000 to 2 prospects' mothers. The first used to assist in medical bills, and the other for a down payment on a vehicle. And I tell you, I call the guy a big dummy, but on the other hand, if somebody was paying me $4 million each year, and over 3 years he handed out, $60,000 or something, and I'm sitting here going, man, over that time he made $12 million, and $60,000, that's like less than 0.5% to help some people out with medical bills. A player's mother can get to work and have some wheels to get there, and some furniture for the kids. I struggle with giving him a lot of grief about. I understand it's wrong and that it's cost him his job, and believe me, he's been penalized big time. But if you had $12 million paid to you, and these kids that are out there busting their butt on the field in the practicing every day are having trouble at home, their mother has medical bills, she doesn't have a car, it's kind of hard to pay for things like that when you're on a practice field, when you're 19 years old. And here's a coach with $12 million, and everything that kid's doing on that field gets him that $12 million. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying most people, it would be hard not to get a little Chick-fil-A bag and say, look, I'm going to solve this problem. I'm going to sleep tonight and not worry about this young man's mother not being able to pay her medical bills or not having a car. I understand the thought process. You'd feel some guilt. You'd have to, of making $12 million and their mother is suffering. And $60,000 in NIL money today is nothing. Okay, Nico's making $8 million over 3 years or something, or 4. That's $60,000. That's a lot of money to regular folks like myself and you probably, unless you're rich. But when you're talking that kind of money, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying I do understand the mindset of helping some kids out. Anyway, so that's what's going on here. And, of course, Danny White took over and got things squared away, hired Josh Heupel, and, of course, they went 11-2, and everything's moving swimmingly. So it sounds like in a few weeks we're going to have a heck of a hearing, and it's going to be very interesting. I'll be covering the crap out of that because that interests me to no end.
I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
But it sounds like it's coming to a head. We're going to have some sort of resolution, and I don't think it's going to be – it's pretty clear Pruitt's going to get a show cause. Now, realize show cause does not mean he can't work in the NCAA, work for a college. It just means the college has to show cause for hiring him, and it puts a huge spotlight on the college. So, for example, if Alabama were to rehire him, now there's a spotlight on Alabama by the NCAA of going, okay, you just hired this guy who you know how he is, and now we're going to be watching you like a hawk. That's why most schools will not hire a show cause guy. That's why Auburn waited until Bruce Pearl was past his show cause, and then they hired him, and that wound up being a good hire for them. Pearl can coach. It's just, he lied about a barbecue sandwich. So it is what it is. So you would think the Vols cooperating like they did should be rewarded, but, we'll see. Now let's talk about Josh Heupel responded, and he kind of responded in kind to what Kirby Smart was talking about, and about how the Vols are he basically called us a gimmick. Okay, in a nice way, by talking about how we just speed everything up. The quarterback doesn't have to be smart or really be able to read defenses. Everything's taken care of for him. All he's got to do is just halfway function, and he can be great. And I'm going, well, if that were true, everybody'd be doing it. It's not that easy. So anyway, Josh Heupel had a few words about it. And this is on Twitter. And let's see, Zach Reagan actually put this on Twitter.
I'm getting a lot of questions about scheme and guys that want to incorporate a lot of what we're doing. So I think it will transition just fine. You look at the NFL, college football, how it's impacted the way that game is being played now. A lot of what is happening on this level is transitioning upward, not necessarily just downward.
Yeah, so in other words, a lot of the NFL people are like, tell us what you're doing because we want to emulate parts of it. And that's pretty normal. You know, when you have a lot of success, people want to know how you're doing it, and they want to start taking parts of it that suit their offense or their scheme and making their scheme better. So I think these people that are, you know, attacking him because of his success and he's doing it differently, you know, I think they're kind of full of crap. But realize you're dealing with a guy in Josh Heupel who's known nothing but success. He won a national title, finished second in the Heisman. You know, he's just used to winning. So he's used to being attacked for that. So it's not that big a deal. But he, you know, obviously he's not too concerned about it. And one thing that a lot of you folks may not realize is that we're kind of lucky that Josh Heupel wound up picking football as a profession. You know, he was obviously a really great college player, but, you know, he was also in theater, and he was quite a good actor and a good singer, and a lot of you don't realize that. Now, I can't show you his singing skills, but I can show you his acting skills. He came super close to getting a role that would have changed his life, and we wouldn't have him as head coach now, and he had tried out for Grease. I have a little video where he tried out. I can't do the music because of copyright, but I do have the actual video.
Oh, yeah?
So, yeah, we were pretty fortunate. You know, he had a full head of hair back then, and, you know, look, it was between him and another guy that wound up being a pretty big actor, and he had a lot of success. So, you know, Heupel was that close to being a big star. But I'm glad he wound up going the football route. I think that was a good choice. But, you know, the guy had some skills. There's no doubt about that. All right, folks, just wanted to cover this a little bit. This NCAA, I've been really watching this closely. And Heupel, of course, had to respond to that nonsense. And I just want to remind you again, tonight I'll be on Big Vol Daddy's show. He's invited me, and I'll be there at 8 p.m. That's Eastern Standard Time, live. Hopefully it all works out. I've never used this StreamYard before, which is what he's going to be using. So hopefully be no glitches and all that. But anyway, if you're going to watch that, be sure to check that out at 8 p.m., Big Vol Daddy. And if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Lets me know to continue to cover the Vols and wear more Butch Jones shirts. And if you've not subscribed, it's right here on the left. Just hit that little button. I would appreciate it. Costs you nothing. Helps me out a little bit. Come on. Anyway, most recent videos right here. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay. Or tonight, Sports Talk Jay on Big Vol Daddy.